And welcome to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. Special episode today. Cheers. Before we get
Cheers.
started to the meat and potatoes, let's enjoy a crisp cold one. We're
Happy
recording
Memorial
today.
Day.
Yep, recording today on Memorial Day. I'm drinking Cognitive Dissonance out of Electric Brewing Company from California.
And after 7 years of being deprived of this, I'm drinking some nice Yingling, all right?
Oldest brewery in America. Oldest brewery in America. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
And cheers to everybody out there. Today we're going to get into DeAndre Hopkins. Our thoughts on the release of DeAndre Hopkins, our thoughts on where we could see him going and even where we'd like to see him going. And again, as always, like and subscribe, hit the notification button, and feel free to comment on your thoughts. We're pretty good about reaching back out to you all and would like to hear everything from you guys. Let's get into it. So DHop, released by the Cardinals. Very surprising to me, most likely because he wanted out, they wanted out, they're moving on. It almost seems like they're moving towards an official rebuild, which is weird. You just pay Kyler Murray all that money. However, they got nothing for DeAndre Hopkins. That's the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shows how bad this franchise is right now. And I think they kind of regretted, doing the whole deal with Kyler Murray last year. I said this before the draft started. I said, a perfect team that I think that they can make a trade with, because there was all these talks about DHop being traded and being shopped, was the Chicago Bears. And I said, I was like, it just didn't make sense for, the Bears or the Cardinals to move up to the number 2 spot with the Bears because they weren't in need for one of the quarterbacks. And now retroactively, you look at it and you're like, well, if they're in the full rebuild mode and they don't really believe in Kyler, that would have been a perfect scenario to kind of be able to shop that, get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, and go get a quarterback for the future. Have him work under Kyler for a year to see if Kyler pans out, and then you can always trade him for capital next year. The biggest shocker is that he was just cut, just straight up cut. Get something for him. Get a 6th-round pick or get a 5th-round pick.
Anything.
Anything.
A lunch, a sack lunch.
Yeah, if you're in rebuild mode, trade them to be able to pay for your players' lunches, because they don't do that either. Anything. So, if you're in rebuild, fully commit to the rebuild. And this is what a lot of NFL teams don't do this. They don't fully commit. And it's just go and rebuild, because it is possible in the NFL to rebuild a team after 2 years. So if you have the right capital to do that, but to just get rid of DHop, and I don't know if there was teams that wanted them to take on the contract, or I don't know what there was. You don't know what the negotiations were. Maybe the Cardinals did it all in good faith and we're just saying, we're going to stink this year. Go pick a team that you're going to win it. Because, if the teams that probably were trading or were shopping for DeAndre Hopkins the most probably were not playoff contenders as we see it right now.
Yeah. I mean, well, you look at what he did last year. So he came in after the suspension for PEDs. He puts up, 64 catches, 717 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It's not amazing, but again, you look at those stats on paper and it doesn't look great. Yeah, I think he was wide receiver 49. If you look at those stats when you take everything into account coming off the suspension, Kyler Murray getting injured, and him having a backup quarterback for the rest of the time, and the team primarily running the ball after that, and the addition of Hollywood Brown to add 2 targets being taken away. It's just a lot of things weren't going his way. And for those who drafted him in fantasy, even with the suspension, were still going to be disappointed when he returned. Yeah. Wherever he goes here, he's going to have an increase in value, increase in stats. I don't even care if he goes to a place that already has a solid wide receiver 1. He's going to have an immediate impact. I mean, let's talk about right here. You said Chicago Bears, and they're the number 1 team with the biggest salary cap, with cap space of $32 million. But you still have the Carolina Panthers with $27 million, about 28. Colts with $23 to $24 million. The Lions with about $24 million. But those 4 teams don't check the boxes that DeAndre Hopkins was talking about when he says he wants to go to a place with a solid quarterback and a solid back office. And to me, you got Chicago Bears, not a solid quarterback. Panthers, not a solid quarterback yet. Colts, another not solid quarterback. Lions, yeah, Goff had a great season, and I think it comes with the coaching But again, you're not looking at a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. I think he's on the fringe. So
of those four teams, I think the Lions are the most feasible. I think that it's actually a fairly good fit for him. You have on the other side. You have Laporta, who came in this year, who's just an athlete. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, you have a rebuilding team, but they're rebuilding in the right direction. I don't necessarily think that's where he would want to go. Like, I would say they're a contender now, or a playoff team now, but they're not a contender now. And I don't think with the addition of DHop it makes them even more of a contender. I still think they're a playoff team. Like, do you think that adding DHop would beat the Eagles? Like, that's the bar that we're going to set in the NFC at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you're going to say if you go to an NFC team is like, can you compete with the Eagles? And you know, you could even argue Cowboys in that aspect and all these other teams. Can you shoot out with the Vikings? Like, is it going to add enough value for you to beat those teams? And to me, I think it does add in the Lions. But again, are the Lions going to put in all that effort to get this guy and act like they're in a win now mode? And I don't know if that's going to be the case, because we know that the treads are getting lighter with DeAndre Hopkins. He's not getting younger. And as wide receivers know, they're going to lose a step. This guy has a catch radius unlike any other, and he can win the 50-50 ball. Yeah, he's just an amazing receiver. So wherever he goes, he's bringing that value. And when I look at the list, too, of everything, you know, I don't like him at the Chicago Bears. I don't like him at the Carolina Panthers, although that'd be a great intro to the NFL for Bryce Young. I don't like him at the Colts because even if Anthony Richardson hits the ground running as a starting quarterback, I think that hurts DeAndre Hopkins, and it hurts the rest of that offense too, because now you're going to try and funnel receptions towards this guy. And then the Lions, I do agree, those four teams is probably the best bet. But you still got teams like the New York Jets, who still have $18 million cap space. You've got New Orleans Saints with $14 million cap space if you want to just say, hey, we can't rely on Michael Thomas being healthy. Baltimore Ravens, another one who has $12.5 million in cap space. Another option there where he goes to Lamar Jackson. And so when you look at the Jets, you've got Aaron Rodgers. Saints, you've got Derek Carr, whether you're in my camp where I don't think he's as good as we make him to be in this whole fantasy realm, or he's a solid quarterback to others. And the Baltimore Ravens have Lamar Jackson. And if he goes to any of those three teams, he gets the quarterback he wants. In the Jets, he gets an organization that I think he's going to love. And same with the Ravens. So to me, I think it's probable.
Yeah, I mean, let's back up a little bit and see, kind of talk about what DHop, what I think he would want, right? And we've all talked about him wanting to play with these other quarterbacks, but financially, what he's going to want. Because there's been a lot of talk the last couple of days since the release, how he wants to go to Kansas City or the Buffalo, and those are the best fits, and they'll move around money to get him. That's true. Any of these guys, if they're going to do a one-year deal, you can move around money, turn it into bonuses, not have a big cap
Correct.
hit.
Correct. However, cap space is kind of BS, as I've said plenty before, because you can do all that stuff. And just so everybody knows, Kansas City's got only about $1 million in cap space, and Buffalo's got $1.5 million. So yeah. So
here's the thing: is do we think he is going to go all in with the team this year just for a one-year deal, or do we think that DHop is going to look for a 2 to 3 year deal with maybe a player option in there? And if that's the case, I think it eliminates Kansas City, and I think it eliminates Buffalo.
Correct.
And some of these teams that don't have a lot of cap space right now, because your teams are not going to transfer 2 years of a contract into bonuses. They're just not. They're not going to do it. It's unheard of. I don't think what he's going to be wanting contract wise that's been done before.
Correct.
So if we think he's going to make $9+ million a year, which I think is a fair assessment, right?
Well, yeah.
I don't think that those teams are going to convert $18 million in cap space over the next 2 years just to get them into the roster, unless they renegotiate other players' contracts, and that's a whole nother story. I just don't see. I think it's a great fantasy fit, and I think it's a great fit for Kansas City to go and get him, for Buffalo to get him. I just don't know if DHop wants to do a 1 year deal. And if he does want to do a 1 year deal, then go. Those teams are great fits for him. Obviously, pair him with Patrick Mahomes, pair him with Josh Allen. get guys on the other side, other pass catchers that are volume guys on those teams that can kind of take the coverage away from DHop and let him get one-on-one. I think those are great places for him, but realistically, like, he wants to go to a contender. He's probably going to want a 2 or 3 year deal. And so I think that eliminates a lot of these teams. I think Baltimore is a team that's high up there. The Jets are a team that's high up there on that. I've heard Atlanta being floated around, and I think that Atlanta would be a good fit, other than the fact that Desmond Ritter's the quarterback. Like, I just don't think that he wants to go and play for a rookie or a second-year guy, other than Trevor Lawrence, where I think Jacksonville is a very sneaky team where people aren't talking about it, and I think adding DeAndre Hopkins to that Jacksonville team makes them dangerous. They're already a playoff contender, and this might put them over the edge to actually be a contender for the Super Bowl. You have a great head coach. You have, for other than the Urban Meyer situation 2 years ago, that organization is a good organization that wants to pay its players, that takes care of its players. No state income tax in Florida. I think it would be a great fit for him. But the Jets, Baltimore, I think would be fantastic fits for him. Even if you look at like Miami, another good fit for him. Dallas, another good fit for him. The Giants would be a good fit if he wanted to play with Daniel Jones. I just don't know if he wants to do that. And I don't think the Eagles are a great fit for him either. Like, I can't see the Eagles tying up that kind of money in 3 wide receivers. I can't.
No, I honestly, we could backtrack a little bit and talk about a couple of things, but I agree with that $9 million cost maybe for DeAndre getting $9 million a year. The crazy part is the franchise tag in the NFL for wide receivers, because of these contracts that these wide receivers are getting, is anywhere from $17 to $19 million. So you look at the league average, or he'll get 120, not that he's going to get franchise tagged, obviously that's not the same exact thing. But if you look at the league average or the top of the league average, if he tries to get paid like the top 5 guys on average, it's going to be that much per year. And again, he hasn't been talking about money, and he's honestly, it sounds like he's been willing to take a cut to play for somebody he wants to play for and an organization he wants to play for. So I agree. I don't think he's going to try and go somewhere where he's not going to try and win a ring. But as a 30-year-old receiver, on his mind, does he want to do a 1-year contract and get a championship ring and move on? Or does he want to try and play for another 3-4 years in the NFL, which I think he probably has in him. So it's like, I don't know if he wants to go the Odell Beckham route, where he goes and plays for a team to win a ring, and then he goes for another team. He's going to be on another team. Yeah, and then he's going to go for another team next year. That doesn't to me seem like DeAndre Hopkins. He's been a loyal guy to the teams he's played for, and unfortunately the Texans didn't have the loyalty in him, and the Cardinals don't seem to either.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Odell Beckham. Like, after seeing Odell Beckham, he waits, signs a contract with LA, goes and gets his ring, gets hurt in the Super Bowl, misses an entire year of football after that. Like, if that happened to D-Hop and he got hurt towards the end of the year or during the year, we might be talking like his career might be over.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily think that he wants to do a 1-year deal.
But here's the thing, before we go further, I don't know if that's a case for D-Hop, because both those receivers, we forget, everybody thinks Odell Beckham Jr. is younger, and they're both 30 years old. Right. And one's been way more healthier than the other in terms of, and so I think DeAndre Hopkins, I'm surprised Odell Beckham, I obviously wanted to come back, but DeAndre Hopkins has been more durable than Beckham has. In fact, until that injury he had on the first year or second year with the Cardinals, he had missed, I think, something like 1 or 2 games in his entire career up to that point, which is ridiculous. So,
but he's 2 years off an ACL injury. He missed most of last year with the PED suspension, but he was still recovering from that. So I think actually the suspension helped him in his long-term health, because he wasn't playing, he wasn't doing damage to that. He was able to make a full recovery on it. I agree with you. I think he's a lot healthier than Odell Beckham was, but do you want to be in the same scenario where you might be out of football for a year and then have to come back? And I don't know. I think that I kind of tend more towards or trend more towards him going to a contender on a 2 or 3 year deal rather than going for a 1-year deal.
Correct. I'm in the same boat as you. I agree with that.
Yeah. So
and to me, I think someone like Buffalo can give him that deal because they don't have to be married to their other receivers that they have there. They like pretty much Diggs is their big guy.
Exactly. They're paying Diggs, and that's it. They're not really paying Gabe Davis. They're not really paying these other receivers that much. And so,
but that's what I'm saying. For like someone like Von Miller to rework a contract, and some of these other guys to rework a contract to fit him in, and have Gabe Davis be their wide receiver 3 for the next couple of years, they can be that team that oversteps the Chiefs in terms of a dynasty for the next couple of years. Whereas the Chiefs, they're in a tougher position because it's not their wide receiver room isn't costing them a lot of money. Their wide receiver room is probably the cheapest of most of the teams. Their money is in everybody else collectively across the board, and they're going to have to pay, running backs. Obviously they didn't take the 5th year on Clyde Edwards, but they're going to have to pay running backs eventually. They're going to have to pay Pat Mahomes, restructure him possibly to make him the highest paid quarterback again at some point. So again, I think the Chiefs would go for a 1-year deal. I think Buffalo could try and wiggle their way into a multi-year deal. To me, let's do this right here. I'll give you my top 2 places that I think he will go, and I think makes a lot of sense for him to go, and then you let me know the 2 places that you think he'll go. And to me, I could see him going Baltimore. To me, that's a likely one to play with Lamar. And then, honestly, the other one would be the New York Jets. I would hate to see him go to the New York Jets, but it's a logical one. It's a veteran receiver they brought a lot of people in, but to get a DeAndre Hopkins there with Garrett Wilson running all over the field, and then you have Lazard and everybody being a carousel of other fresh legs each down, Aaron Rodgers could win MVP for the next 3 years if they get him for 3 years.
Yeah, so those were my top 2. So just to throw out 2 more teams, I'll give you my 3, 4. Okay, I would say Chargers, and then Dallas are my next 2 in line to go get him.
I disagree with the Chargers. I don't disagree with Dallas. I think the Chargers, the problem with them right now is they got to figure out their running back room. If they're not going to have Eckler next year, they've got their wide receiver rooms done. What's the difference between him and Keenan Allen? I don't think you're going to have to pay one
Keenan
or keep
Allen
the other one.
3 or 4 games a year. Mike Williams misses 3 to 4 games a year.
Correct. That's why they draft a guy. But Dallas scares me, being an NFC East guy. Dallas scares me because they are that one receiver away from being a little bit more dangerous in a game week-to-week basis. That could be their dagger.
DHop, CD, Cooks, Gallup.
Yeah. Well, honestly, at the end of the day, we'll have to follow the news. We'll see where he goes. This is just our thoughts. This is our opinions. We like DeAndre Hopkins as a receiver. Right now, we can't give any advice on where we would take him in leagues because we have no idea what team he's going to be on. But based on that, keep an eye out down the road. We are going to be putting together our full rankings from quarterbacks down to tight ends and defenses. We'll be sharing that with you guys when that's finalized. And if you have any opinions, leave your thoughts in the comments where you think DeAndre Hopkins is going to go.
Drop them below. We'll answer. We'll talk.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you all soon. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our latest episode. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.
Don't forget to ring that bell for notifications and stay up to date on our latest content.
Catch you all soon.